Uh, it's my pleasure to introduce, we know her as Rory Zahourek, who also has been with us over the years and she's presented a theory of healing. She's done a lot of amazing work. Her bio, again, is in the guidebook. So I'm simply going to turn it over to her. Do you need help from Lisa with your slides?
Okay, the goals for today are to discuss love from a unitary perspective. And I must say that what's going on in the world right now and in our country, that we definitely need some more love going on. There's a lot of hate currently, a lot of violence, a lot of separation and division. How do we understand love in nursing's growing ontology of integral wholeness, expanding consciousness, intentionality, and caring? How is love related to our beliefs about the nature of being, becoming, existence, and relationships? So I hope to discuss love as a potential energy spirit, thank you, John Phillips, concept for nursing. So these are the areas that I'd like to cover today. Certainly the science of unitary human beings as it relates to love, unitary caring science, Newman's health as expanding consciousness, and intentionality, the matrix for healing. So why should we consider love at all? Cody in 2002 said we need a lyrical language in our theoretical practice and research activities in order to regain some of the complexities of nursing knowledge. Lyricism is a quality of discourse expressing intensely personal feelings and emotions. Okay. He concludes that a nursing practice rooted in love is, and I can't see the rest of it. So what is love? A secondhand emotion. And following on Cody's description of using lyrical language, I've used songs and mostly songs as a title for a lot of these slides. So we all know that love is a way of being, and it's often an altered state, and that there's numerous patterns of love that are universal, and they're not just patterns that human beings experience. Love is a many-splendored thing, and the manifestations of love, as we all know, are romantic, parental, religious, patriotic, zeal, commitment to an ideal, and it's often directed toward an object, a place, one's country, or oneself. Love manifests in numerous patterns. Life without love is vacuous. We are what we become only as we love, according to Morgan in 1964. Love has no boundaries, and love is evident when the mind behaves non-locally and is the glue that binds distant people together through some sort of level of human consciousness, which is non-local. It is not confined to specific points in space, such as brains or bodies, or moments in time, such as the present moment. Love shows us we are infinite, eternal, and one. That is Larry Dossey in 1996. So love as a pattern. Erich Fromm in 1956, some of you will remember probably reading that book, The Art of Loving, talked about 4 components of love. And those included care, responsibility, respect, and knowing. And I'd like to say that the genesis of this presentation was a research project that I had to do as a graduate student in 1996 and 7 at the University of Colorado. And 4 of us drove back and forth from Denver to Boulder each week to take this research course. So we started talking in the car, and we had to come up with a project, and we were going to do them all individually. And we said, we had decided that, well, let's do something all together. And so we started talking about love, and we devised a whole prospectus. We didn't do the project, but we designed a whole study that when I look at it now, I think is pretty darn good. So we did that, and it was based on love. So, love in nursing. Nursing is not just a special case of loving. You cannot love somebody you do not know, and you cannot love someone you do not respect. That is Sidney Girard from 1964. So, Nightingale. I believe that Nightingale really personifies a lot about nursing and love. She was dedicated. She had great perseverance. She was brilliant. She was creative. She was dedicated and tough. So other nursing scholars, Hildegard Peplau, again in 1952, said that nursing practice can be improved when such words as love, respect for the patient, and nursing the whole patient are clear to those nurses who find symbols useful in communication. Simone Roach wrote in 2002, agape, she considered love. The desire to love and be loved is at the heart of the human condition, at the root of human searching, and a prevailing undercurrent so easily missed in the needs of persons suffering from illness, disease, and disability. Madeline Leininger, who was my supervisor in my master's program at CU, stated, the nurse cannot operate in a vacuum without some expression of her emotions. Notice her emotions, and she has all kinds of them. The real problem and concern is the amount and depth of emotional feeling that she has, and whether or not the emotions will be helpful or not to the patient. Dorothy Smith, who many of you may remember in 1960, said the inner conflict in a nurse-patient relationship is to love or not, and must also include and involve a certain amount of personal commitment to and belief in the power of love as one aid in the healing process. Nursing research and love. When I did a small review of the literature, I found that there were very few studies, in fact, almost none. And the studies I did find were from foreign nurses. Venezuela, The Power of Loving Human Care by Rivero and Erdman. Theirs was a phenomenologic hermeneutic study that came up with the following. Loving human care is understood as an intersubjective relationship between nurses and healthy or ill people, in which love is given and taken, concern and interest, respect, understanding, and responsibility in a reciprocal way. Another paper, not a study, again, came from Iran. Loving and Human Care, a Missing Link in Nursing. Love is the highest concept in human caring. It is a natural human characteristic that tends to disclose one's identity. It creates hope. It respects human dignity and values and fosters cooperation. It empowers nurses. Love, wait just a second here. Love is the core, complemented by knowledge and skill. Lack of compassion and care leads to defective care. A concept analysis, again from Iran, by Hajjasbury, Bolandian Bafi in 2020, more recent. Their results stated that love creates relationships, solidarity, and a deep sense of unity, a sense of responsibility, respect, and understanding of others, an experience of sharing and sympathy that may lead to patient healing. Love helps nurses convert themselves and systems into caring, healing models. They state that love is a moral responsibility that transcends its everyday form to a metaphysical state of being. Love is a stimulant, creating a sense of solidarity and unity, and reduces separations and connects. So the attributes of their concept analysis were the following, and you'll hear some of the same terms mentioned more than once: responsibility, moral obligation, benevolence, attention, concern, respect, and understanding of others. So let's look at unitary science. And we'll look at Watson's unitary caring theory, Newman's expanding consciousness, certainly the science of unitary human beings, and my theory of intentionality. So Watson's has 6 elements of unitary caring science. Many of you know these: interconnectedness and undivided wholeness, the eternal here and now, time is not linear, the evolutionary and participatory nature of change is unpredictable, paradox, and love. Whoop. Love is the center of the cosmology of unitary caring science. As I said, love and care are universal, and love is the glue and the messenger of caring and healing. So Watson, let's see if I can read this. Watson states, the consciousness of love has a particular pattern and quality that's reflected in the consciousness of the field. It's information coding and produces the most coherence. Abiding in love is transformative, creating coherence of consciousness to experience the ultimate relationship of alignment. Margaret Newman stated that in Health is Expanding Consciousness, that absolute consciousness is equated with love. Love creates coherence and is the capacity to come into meaningful relationship. Unconditional love is embracing all experience, a valueless state of awareness that lifts to a finer, more radiant quality. Love is the highest form of consciousness and the substrate for all emotions. So intentionality, the matrix of healing, energetic pattern and patterning characteristics of all living things characterize intentionality. Pattern reflects the whole self in intentionality. Intentionality is related to consciousness and to actions. And it is the capacity for intention that then forms actions. Another quote related to this is from Levin in 1999. Love is chi with intent, or the natural life force backed with intentionality. It is most fundamental in a human experience and expression from which all creation is manifest. It's a life force with harmonious intent behind it. So intentionality and love. Love focuses one's attention on the loved object. It opens our eyes, our minds, and our hearts. Intentional and a pattern of oneself, with self and the world. So in terms of dynamic differentiation, love is an energy pattern that manifests in intentionality as a dynamically differentiating capacities of participating intentionally with self, others, and the world. Martha Rogers. Her postulates, energy fields, openness, pattern manifestation, and pandimensionality. And I ask, how difficult or easy is it to conceptualize love in these postulates? I contend it's not that hard. Helicy, resonance, and integrality. I can't even talk straight, I'm sorry. I contend that love manifests as an energy pattern that communicates information, energies, and feelings. Love is kaleidoscopic, and it may be continuously innovative, creative, and unpredictable, manifesting as changing patterns and expanding and contracting over time. Helice, continuous, innovative, unpredictable, increasing diversity of the human environmental fields, infant, adult, old age, all seen together, dynamically differentiating patterns and intentionality. Is love a differentiating pattern of helice? I ask you all, a pan-dimensional awareness that fosters integral presence. Resonancy, a non-linear, non-directional, continuous change from lower and higher wave frequencies in human environmental fields. When these work together, it becomes an innovative, diverse pattern or patterns. I contend love is an innovative pattern of lower, higher wave frequency. Falling in love and loving is a higher wave frequency. Is it increasingly complex? Is it innovative? Does it manifest diverse patterns? Philip said, when the rhythmicity of lower, higher frequencies work together, they yield innovative, diverse patterns. John, is that love? Integrality, the oneness of human and environmental fields. Continuous mutual human field and environmental field processes flowing in lower and higher wave frequencies. I really love that. It's not lower to higher, it's lower and higher. Is love a manifestation of mutual human environmental field process flowing in lower, higher wave frequencies? Nurse and patient are always connected and in mutual process, and the realm of meaningful connection is facilitated by creating a rhythm and flow through intentional expression of unconditional love. Integrality, a meaningful, let me see, I'm losing my place here. And a meaningful connection with the client is facilitated through did I just do that? Intentional expression of unconditional love, compassion, and empathy. Together this is a quote from Butcher and Malinsky. Together in mutual process, the nurse and client explore the meanings, images, symbols, metaphors, thoughts, insights, intuitions, memories, hopes, apprehensions, feelings, and dreams associated with the health situation. It's quite a quote. A framework, love and Rogerian science. And that's a question. Love manifests, I contend, as a pan-dimensional pattern of unique, multivariate, diverse fields reflecting experiences, cultures, values, and beliefs. Love creates a unitary field of being in mutual process. The field may be observable or not. Rogerian science and love. Love is open, boundaryless, nonlinear. It manifests as energy pattern. Energy patterns of love reflect one's history, values, beliefs, and experiences. What would happen if we brought up the idea of love to a class of nursing students or practicing nurses? What are your ideas? What are the risks? What might be the benefits? What implications can we teach? Some of the implications are, can we teach love? The concept analysis and Erich Fromm's work go together a bit. Responsibility is replicated in Erich Fromm's work. Benevolence, attention, and concern all relate to care. Respect is respect. understanding and knowing go together. So it's possible we could use Erich Fromm's The Art of Loving as a framework, like we did in that early 1997 potential study. So what are the issues to consider? And there are issues when we think about love. Our capacity to love and how we manifest love reflects our experiences, our cultures, and our beliefs. People may be deficient in love experiences as they grew up and developed. They may, as a result, have intense neediness, have difficulty, and be defensive and highly dependent in relationships. They may manifest this deficit in aggressive behaviors. Loving professionally does not mean eliminating professional boundaries. And as a psych nurse, I can't emphasize that more. Loving does not mean infantilizing, but seeing and participating with the potential in others. Love doesn't mean changing people's beliefs and values, even though we want those we love to be like and reflect us in every way. So in summary, love is a many-splendored thing, I believe. Love exists in both the implicit and explicit order of the universe. It is an energetic pattern of simplicity and increasing complexity and diversity. It is manifest in patterns of observable feelings, behaviors, and actions. It's manifest in values and culture and intentionality. It is multidimensional in terms of time, reality, space. Love in a unitary cosmology. Love is manifest as an open, boundaryless, nonlinear pattern with no spatial or temporal boundaries. It is a continuous, innovative, unpredictable, increasing diversity of the human environmental field patterns, Rogers. It is energy information that potentiates mutual processes in thoughts, feelings, and actions. These diverse patterns of intentionality manifest at different points in life and in different situations. Love focuses our attention, our senses, hearts, energies, and minds. It molds and sculpts our differentiating intentionality, or how we view and participate in the world. The energy field of love may be perceived subtly, or it may be so dominant that that's all we can think of. And that certainly is expressed in many of our great literatures where people fall in love with another person or a concept or a country, and it takes over for everything. Love pattern manifestations, again, a summary. Love is an energy, spirit, information pattern. It evolves in mutual process, whether it's returned or not, between and among people and other living and non-living things. It is a manifestation of consciousness, thoughts, intentionality, and actions. Love continuously varies in intensity and is unpredictable moment to moment. Oh, I wonder who wrote the book of love? Does anybody remember that? There is also, my daughter-in-law informed me, there is another who wrote the book of love that is not an old rock and roll song from 1958. And it's a beautiful, beautiful song. If you get a chance to look it up, Google it. You'll see more than one, I wonder who wrote the book of love. So, shall we write the book of love for nursing education, science, and practice? Should we get love back into nursing? What do you think? There are so many references to this. I'm happy to send them to you if you're interested. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I missed a lot of the bottom part of my slides. I really would appreciate comments, questions.
Patty's got a question for you.
Pat, I see Patty.
Yes, hi, thank you for this, very timely and excellent presentation on love. Certainly, we need to be paying attention to this, as you mentioned at the beginning of your talk. In recent years, I've been reading a lot about Teresa Meehan's work on careful nursing. And she has some 10 key concepts. And one of the concepts that she calls it is disinterested love. And just one of the sentences that she has is, she says it supports the idea of great tenderness in patient care, and it disposes nurses to practice with affection and kindness and so forth. But she says within the context of disinterested love, these qualities are understood to arise from the heart and reside in the will, not in the feelings or transient emotions. And I'm just trying to square everything together. I don't know if you can square things together, but could you comment on some of the concepts that you talked about with this concept of disinterested love?
I would go to my my alcoholism experience, and it is really it's what's called detaching with love for people in Al-Anon. And basically, I think it what you described sounds kind of negative, but I think it is loving without having your ego involved. What do you think of that, Patty?
Yeah, I think that is a really good point. I still work clinically, and I know that, not that we observe each other going into different rooms, but, I am aware of some nurses that go into rooms and do bring their ego. They're the experts, Mr. Smith, it's time for you, and it's so important for you to, get these interventions done. Whereas other nurses have a different approach that is more in relationship with. So I think that ego aspect is perhaps encapsulated by that disinterested word. And I do think that's very important.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. That's a very interesting comment. Thank you. Violet.
Hi, that was a great presentation, really beautiful, particularly with your aesthetic incorporation of the aesthetic with your use of music. I mean, that was just perfect. It brought so much of it alive. And I have to thank you for talking about those studies coming out of Iran, because I really felt myself pulled up short because of the way I think about the country. And it was a good reminder, these are human beings and we all share. So we have so much in common, and we really need to work to break down these boundaries that don't exist, but we keep putting them there. So thank you. That just in and of itself, that nugget was extremely important.
Well, good. Now, I was really surprised when I saw where they were from, and they're beautifully written, both of them.
I'm sure.
With some problems with English and translation, but they were basically really good.
Oh, there was one other thing. Take a look at Elizabeth Barrett's health patterning modality of love power resonance.
Oh, I didn't find that.
Well, you will find it in my chapter on Barrett in the upcoming Smith book. And well, actually, it's in there. Elizabeth had it in there in the 2020, her chapter, which I simply revised since she's not here physically to do it.
Right.
So you'll find it in the 2020.
Okay, thank you. Stephen.
Yeah, thanks. So wonderful presentation. I thought of the word generosity, love as the motivation for generosity. And it was really what came to mind was this week we had a meeting with Leonard Lauder, who gave a large donation to Hunter College and really talked about his relationship with his wife, who has died recently, and he wanted to give back. So it was the Eleanor Lauder fund. He's funded at our school. So I just thought the generosity that flowed from this relationship he had, and so love and generosity, how they're linked, might be something you want to think about more.
Interesting. Thank you. Patricia?
Yes, thank you. That was a beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
It made me, similar to Dr. Bauman, think about respect and also to kind of align it with Dr. Conrad's presentation earlier today, because I was touched by that, in that we always say to our students, look at the person behind the themes. But I think that we're seeing so many themes, and it's wonderful to have the qualitative data and the phenomenological studies out there. But sometimes the audience is just looking at theme after theme. And the way that Dr. Conrad asked us to stop, to close our eyes today, to think about the person behind the theme, I found that to be a very respectful and loving gesture. And I think that that's something else that would be connected to your lovely work too, the idea of the linkage between respect and love.
Thank you. Yes, I do too. Richard and John. John's not muted.
Let
so
John
I'll
go
let
first.
Okay, John.
First.
Recently, when I was with my sister who was in a nursing home, I spent the whole day with her, and observing the people who came in to help her, you could actually tell those who loved their job and those who hated their job.
Yep. I was going to say, if you've been a patient recently or ever, you know who is caring, who is loving, and who is not. Jackie?
A couple things. First of all, I put in the chat earlier today that there's two conceptual models of nursology developed by nurses in Iran. One was published a while ago in Nursing Science Quarterly, and the other one I think is in Advances in Nursing Science. I worked with both of those scholars as they developed them, and at least one of them is all about mysticism and Iranian mysticism.
Wow.
And the other one I can't remember exactly, but there's ideas about love and mysticism in those as well. So that as you know, has been said, we have to separate the people in any country from the politics of the country. And I think that's important. And the other comment I was thinking of, when respect comes up as a component of love all the time, what do we do if we're taking care of a person who's committed a heinous crime? So is the nursing that we do loving, and we separate the person from the crime, or what do we do? And I was thinking that when I was an undergraduate student in probably my senior year, we had a rotation in so-called psychiatric nursing, and I was at a facility in Boston that had both inpatient and outpatient units, and I was in the outpatient unit working there, but some of my colleagues were in the inpatient unit, and one of the people there was somebody who had murdered, I can't remember whether it was a she murdered her boyfriend or a he who murdered her girlfriend, but it was a major scandal in Boston at the time. And then I was thinking also of people I know who work in correctional systems and how they work with the prisoners. And so I think that we have to figure out what we mean by respect in that, and how we treat the person versus, you know, like, so do we say, you know, like, what you've done is not an appropriate or not a good thing, but, you know, I'm going to take care of you anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jackie. When I was a brand new psych nurse in Colorado, we had a woman admitted to the inpatient unit where I was working, and she was a child abuser. And I remember the psychiatrist who was working with child abuse, Brant Steele, came over and talked to the staff and said that what is really important to realize is most child abusers have been abused by themselves, have been abused by their parents or somebody in their history. And that changed the whole atmosphere on the unit. We saw her more as a whole person not just as a nasty old child abuser. So I think recognizing and looking at people as a whole, as a unitary whole, what goes into their histories and their experience, etc.
Thank you.
Yeah, Richard, you've been very patient.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I know, I was just gonna share something. I think it was back in the 90s, sometimes some of the faculty came to me who had heard Marilyn D. Ray present, wanted her to come to VCU. And so she, I was associate dean for a graduate program. So I worked it out to invite her, and she did presentations for the faculty, doctoral students, so forth. She did this presentation for in the hospital, the VCU, hospital system. And her theme was love. And people didn't know how to handle it. People could not, and I'm not saying it's a practice thing. A lot of these were administrative team members and so forth. And I was just thinking of that as you were talking, that they just somehow, but I think we've come a long way too in talking about love. I think as we evolve, as human beings, I hope we seem to, be able to, we need love. So maybe we're open more to love.
Thank you. Yeah. Mary?
Well, thanks, Rory, for this thought-provoking conversation. I have a couple of comments, and it kind of works off of Richard. You can lower your hand now, Richard. You're done. I would say Dee Ray, if you go back to her work, I was one of her students. She really was the first to link love and care. And she really does believe that that is the center of nursing practice. And I'd like to comment on Jackie Fawcett's comment about criminals and how you approach those. I worked a lot with nurse practitioner students in Colorado, where we went to Florence, which you all know is a maximum security prison. And what I always told students about that is that I want you to see each one of those criminals through their eyes as a child, because it was their childhood who created what they are today. And I believe that love needs to start with children. I deal with them every day, and I can tell you what happens when they don't have love, and when their parents are devoid of the ability to love in whatever situation they're in. And I always said to students, you don't have to ask a lot of questions. You have to be present and figure out what it is that they're there for today. Because a lot of the nurses had become quite, I don't know what I always say they put up such a guard to be careful around them. But I said, carefulness and safety is important, but also seeing the person for who they are.
Yeah, thank you, Mary, for that. I do wonder if, if you said to a group of students, okay, we're going to talk about love today, or a group of staff nurses, we're going to talk about love today, what would happen? Patty, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to share it from both angles. When I was working as a staff nurse, I still do, but when I was working at a different hospital, we used to get patients sometimes from Bridgewater, which is a place in Massachusetts run by the Department of Corrections, but it's mental health. And there was quite a lot of history, I guess, with this guy. And he had one chained to the bed, and there were two guards in the room. I think I was working like a 3 to 11, and nurses came up to me and they said, Patty, you're getting this guy. And everyone was scared. Everyone was saying, oh, he talks real creepy. Turn your badge over. Don't let him see your name. Just kind of get in and out. I, then got his, history and why I was taking care of him from 3 to 11. And I didn't turn my badge over. And it's like you have to check that stuff at the door. And so then I walked into his room and I greeted him first. And then I greeted the guards and, hung IVs, did whatever I was supposed to do for the guy. And there was no problem. There were no issues. And I recalled that. And then later, a few years later, I used to teach clinical as well. I was teaching at Norwood Hospital, as a matter of fact. I mention that only because they're very close to Norfolk Prison, which is I think a minimum security prison. And that hospital, as you know, got flooded out, no longer exists. But in any case, when I taught there years ago, they used to put them on one end of a wing. And we used to sometimes get these patients from the prison, and they were always old guys. Like their problems, their cases were 30 plus years old. And that's when I had an opportunity then to not teach students like I was being, like when I took care of that student when I took care of that patient from Bridgewater at the other hospital. So rather than going to my students and either not assigning them to those patients from Norfolk and not telling them, oh, hide your badge and, these kinds of things, I would walk them into the room, and as long as they weren't on an anticoagulant, I always checked with the nurse, I wanted all those men shaved. And my nurses had a long time to get to be in the presence of, to learn with, to do that intimate care of, those patients. And it was very valuable to them so that they didn't develop some of the things that I had run into previously.
Yeah, thank you.
Rory, this is break time, but if people don't mind going a little longer, we do have a business meeting 3 to 4 that everyone is invited to. But if people would like to stay, anyone who wants to go on their break, but everybody please come back at 3 for the business meeting. Go ahead.
Okay, Catherine and Megan. Catherine?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for a lovely presentation. I do believe that love runs the world, but I have had conversations with adult children. And so it kind of tags on to a little bit about what Richard was saying, like, oh, what do you do with love? When that topic comes up, because there's many adult children who the word love was never used in their childhood. And I don't think it was that they didn't feel cared for, but they never heard the word love. And I think there may be more people around than, that have had that experience than maybe we realize.
Yeah, I would, thoroughly, as a psych nurse, I would thoroughly agree with you. And, again, I think it's, as some of the other people have mentioned, John and Richard and what have you, that a lot of it has to do with, you don't have to mention love necessarily. It's really who you are as a person and how you communicate, what your energy feels like as you work with people. Are you in a hurry? You can be in a hurry and still be loving. It's a little hard to do, but you can do that, I think. So, I would agree with you. An awful lot of our patients and nurses, I think a lot of nurses have grown up, not experiencing a lot of love.
Megan, you want the final question?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Rory, thank you. Nice to see you, Rory.
Nice to see you too. I can't see you right now, but I can hear you.
So I think nursing needs to refine how we know love, right? So what's the epistemology of love? We need a pedagogy that points to this idea of agape. So we're not confusing these personal, fraternal, these other kinds of levels of love with this idea of the love that is within this pan-dimensional unitary field, right? And I just think that we need a curriculum to teach nurses the self-care work to situate ourselves within this field of agape. So if you have some mechanism to be accessing this love, this larger love that you're referring to, I think that kind of flows in all these interactions that people were talking about, and understanding all these deficits to love that people were referring to. But it's such an important thing, and I love this idea of needing more lyrical language that you brought up, to describe these phenomenon in nursing. So thank you, Rory.
Thank you. John, did you have one last?
Just a comment. There is the possibility of love for the person, but not love for their actions.
Yes, absolutely.